In the world Yayatop, a runt predator named Dek is on an education consultation. He makes use of a diffusion of tools to journey the land until he enters a cave wherein his scanner tells him that his brother is hiding close by. Dek attacks in the back of him along with his sword and Quay blocks it simply in time. The brothers begin to fight and Quay maintains taunting Dek as they flow, reminding him to apply the cave to his advantage. Swords keep on clashing as they move everywhere in the cave, and after changing sufficient blows, Quay manages to nip Dek, however would not kill him. While Dek refuses to yield, Quay cuts the pillar they are standing on, and Dek falls into the abyss. He manages to store himself by way of maintaining onto the wall. He climbs again up and assaults Quay again. Afterward their ship, Quay tells Dek it's time to pick out a prey so he can earn his area in the Aya extended family. Dek wants to visit Jenna, also known as the Death Planet, to seek the unkillable monster, Cowlisk. Even their father fears it, and that's why Dek desires to pass after it. He is tired of his dad seeing him as a weakling. Quay would not approve. However, Dek makes his vow. At that moment, their father, Jar, returns, and Dek welcomes his honor with a pattern of his blood. Jar wonders why Dek is alive, revealing he ordered Quay to kill him because he is too susceptible to be a part of the extended family. However, Quay thinks Dek deserves a danger to prove himself. An indignant Jar throws a device that captures Dek and tells Quay to kill him now. However, as a substitute, Quay frees him and turns on his laser to send him into the deliver. Then, Quay activates his shield to protect his brother, considering the fact that Jar opens hearth. After closing the ship to hold Dek from escaping, Quay starts preventing Jar, and in just a few actions, he manages to disarm him. Jar turns on his camouflage cloak. However, Quay keeps punching. Jar stabs his hand earlier than chopping his arm off. Then Jar moves his son down and Quay starts crawling away, accomplishing for his arm instead of his sword. Jar calls him vulnerable and stabs him, so Quay makes use of his final breath to spark off the deliver so his brother can pass to Jenna. Dek watches Nar Liquay's neck as the deliver's release knocks him out. Sometime later, Dek is woke up via an alarm. The deliver has been broken by means of the debris in orbit and is hurling toward Jenna. Dek rushes to the seat and ejects it, so it starts falling at splendid pace via the Jenna sky. When a hen nearly crashes into him, he activates the protect. He ends up crashing within the jungle and he roars in frustration. Decided to find the monster, Dek takes inventory of his guns to verify the entirety is working properly. He is startled with the aid of a noise nearby and begins looking the region. Abruptly, a vine-like creature takes him by means of marvel and steals one of his guns. Dek gets his sword ready, but a 2D vine grabs his arm, and he has to cut this one while the first one escapes. Unluckily, extra vines appear and detain for him until they grasp his leg to drag him on the floor. Dek manages to take his bow to shoot his captor to force it to drop him and punches the vine to maintain it back. Then, Dek runs to retrieve his sword and Speedy slashes the vines that maintain attacking him. No rely what number of he cuts down, even though, increasingly keep coming and that they even begin attacking together. Dek fast dodges a few blows and jumps on pinnacle of a vine to run on it, which facilitates him get to the top of a cliff. The vines cannot attain him up there, and now Dek has an exact view of the planet, which appears terrifying. Afterward, Dek washes his wound inside the river and makes use of his scanner to find a medicinal plant that could serve as a bomb. On a leaf, he reveals a worm that starts developing purple spheres, and while he throws it away, it explodes. Then, he is going out to discover and seek for the Cowlisk. On a big area, he finds some peculiar red plants that hold hissing at him, so he moves cautiously to keep away from them. At that moment, Dek hears a voice speaking in an unusual language and looks up to see Thea trapped in a big nest. Realizing he can't recognize her, Thea changes to the conventional translator, which confirms she's an android referred to as a synthetic. A Jenna vulture seems nearby and grabs a rock to throw at the ordinary vegetation. This makes the pods explode with purple smoke and shoot their needles, which Dek quickly dodges. Thea explains that the needles can paralyze him in order that the vulture can devour him. While Thea offers her help, Dek says that the Yaya hunt on his own, and Thea guesses he's here for the Cowlisk. The vulture throws greater rocks and more than one plants are activated, so Dek is hit via the needles. As he begins feeling dizzy, Thea asks for a weapon, so he tosses one of his blades at her earlier than collapsing. The vulture flies down and is ready to eat him while Thea tackles the beast and brutally kills it with the blade. Dek sees her wave before passing out. Minutes later, Dek wakes up because Thea has given him an antidote made from the equal flower. Dek stands up and allows Thea to do the equal, handiest to be aware that she's missing half of her body. She explains she's a synthetic fragrance via the Manor and Yutani business enterprise because people can't live on this planet. it, but Dek would not care and drops her. Thea then factors out that many Yao have come for the Callus and none of them survived, but she did. If he's taking her with him, she'll guide him to the Decision's den. That manner, she gets her legs and he receives his trophy. Dek realizes that it was the Callus who destroyed her, but he is still no longer fascinated. But when Thea calls herself a beneficial tool, Dek would not see it as breaking the code anymore and concurs to carry her along. While they tour, Thea in no way shuts up and keeps asking questions. At the river, some odd worms begin capturing acid at them, so Dek includes Thea on his return to run quicker. Sadly, he unearths the way blocked and Thea makes use of the risk to train him a lesson. She throws a sticky fruit at the floor and the creatures rush to consume it. Now they aren't capturing anymore. Once they leave the river, Dek cuts down a bunch of vines and ties Thea to his return to move extra without difficulty. In the evening, they stop to camp for the nighttime and Dek uses his device for Mile. Thea shares that her group arrived on Jenna 2 years ago and she or he turned into trapped in the vulture's nest for almost 2 weeks. She had hoped that some other artificial named Tessa might come for her and tells Dek that they have a better sensitivity than other models. Dek sees sensitivity as a weak point, but Thea thinks it is an advantage to apprehend different creatures. Thea was once stuck inside the lab, but at some point Tessa brought her out to discover. Unluckily, that changed into additionally the day that the Cowlusk attacked them. Meanwhile, at the group's new base, it's found out that Tessa seems similar to Thea. She acquired excessive harm at some stage in the Cowlusk attack, so now she's in a pod being repaired. Tessa keeps repeating Thea's name and remembering the incident, so the PC reminds her that her priority is to trap the Cowlusk. The laptop also detects the presence of a Yao and classifies him as a risk. Whilst Tessa subsequently wakes up, she's instructed that Theo become captured by using Thea. Within the morning, Dek is going out to hunt for meals. He comes across a bone bison that is generally Callus food. Dek tries to transport in advance, but has to circulate back when he discovers that this area is covered in razor grass. While Dek's about to throw his blade, a small creature jumps from a tree and lands next to the duo. Thea cannot identify it, and Dek roars at it. However, the little man simply roars again. Then the creature starts off evolved chasing after the bison without issues due to the fact its difficult pores and skin isn't harmed by using the razor grass. Livid about having opposition, Dek begins leaping from tree to comply with the bison. 2. The load breaks a branch and the duo falls. So, Dek pierces the tree with his blade and stops the autumn proper before they touch the harmful grass. While the bison runs near them, Dek jumps on it and stabs it, but the bison throws them off with the aid of using some other tree. The small creature rolls beforehand of them and a frustrated Dek tackles it to start a combat, which means Thea regularly receives smushed. The little guy has surprising strength, but after some battle, Dek manages to grab it with the aid of its neck. At that moment, the bison comes strolling closer to them. So, Dek throws his sword and holds the bison's mouth open as the blade proceeds to reduce it in half of. Dek roars to have a good time, a successful hunt, simplest for a tentacle to clutch his leg and raise him. The duo has been captured by using a Luna malicious program whose tight tentacle tongue is stopping Dek from activating his gadgets. Whilst they're approximately to be eaten, the little creature jumps into the Luna computer virus's mouth and blocks its tooth with its difficult skin, breaking them. The Luna malicious program is in so a lot pain that it spits them out and leaves through on foot at the razor grass. Determined for revenge, Dek cuts down a tree to use it as a bridge. The little creature is rolling down the sphere already, and the Luna worm captures it with its tongue. However, at that second, Dek lands on its head. He stabs the monster together with his sword and makes a huge reduce that sooner or later kills it. Meanwhile, Tessa and her crew of synthetics are searching for Thea. They locate Dek's pod before they're attacked by the vines. The team quickly opens hearth to gradual them down. Then, they prompt their flamethrowers to burn all the vines down. Inside the nighttime, Dek and Thea make camp once more. The little creature is still following them and copying every pass of Dek's because it's inspired by means of how he hunted the bison. Thea names it Bud at the same time as Dek shares the roasted meat. Thea asks Dek about his family, so he tells him what came about along with his brother and father. However, he refuses to just accept he's grieving while Thea uses that word. He factors out that Tessa counts as her sister, and Thea likes the concept. In the nighttime, Tessa and her crew discover Dek's ship, which crashed after he jumped out. There are many Yoja guns that Tessa reveals interesting, which includes a grenade that freezes her hand. The following morning, Dek grabs Thea and leaves without Bud, insisting that he hunts on his own, and Thea doesn't rely due to the fact she's a tool. Thea tells him approximately wolves and the way they hunt in packs, but the alpha isn't always the only who hunts the maximum, it's the one who protects the percent. Dek misses the factor and says he will be the alpha who kills the most. After locating a named farm near the river, the duo keeps touring in that path and reaches Thea's base, which has been completely destroyed via the beast. Among dozens of synthetic bodies, Thea reveals her legs. Luckily, the repair device still works and he or she can use it to reconnect both halves of her frame, even though the technique will take some time. She thanks Dek for his help, but additionally apologizes and tells him to go away because she's activated the beacon to call her crew. Thea explains her group is likewise after the decision, so she can't permit him kill it. Dek refuses to depart, saying he'd instead go down with honor than run like a coward. In the middle of the wreckage, there's a few spilled oil, so Dek units it on fireplace to create a smoke cloud. The Cowlust quickly seams and throws Dek down, detrimental his sword. Dek uses a bit of metallic as a defend and slides under the Cowlust to slice its belly. Then he throws his small blade at its head and cuts its tail. However, the tail fast regrows and the injury's close due to the fact the callus has regenerative powers, and is the reason why it is taken into consideration unkillable. The monster captures Dek and throws it towards the repair system, which causes Thea's legs to fall off the desk. When it grabs him again, Del cuts its tongue to free himself. The combat continues and Dek has to sidestep several attacks at the same time as Thea attempts to retrieve her legs. At that moment, she sees a gun on the ground and opens fireplace at the call to distract it. Dek makes use of the risk to throw a series at the call's mouth and activates a machine that starts rolling up the chain, which drags the beast back. Subsequent, Dek takes Thea's gun and starts shooting. While the monster attacks him with its tail, Dek dodges it and closes a storage unit door to lure it. Now, he can run up the name's frame and make a huge leap above its head to effectively decapitate it. Alas, that is still now not enough to kill it, and the top quick reattaches itself to the frame. The Cowlusk holds Dek down with its hug paw and sniffs it. The odor it finds prevents it from attacking. The instant is interrupted while Tessa throws a grenade to freeze both Dek and the Cowlusk so she will be able to capture them. Sometime later, Dek wakes up strapped to a desk in the team's automobile. Thea is in suspension mode due to the fact she's connected to the restore system, and Tessa has studied all her logs. She does not understand why Dek's alive because the Yaya usually kill vulnerable youngsters, and says that belonging to her organization have to be an honor for him. Then Tessa wakes up Thea and congratulates her for getting specimens. She offers Dek a painful injection to experiment on him, so Thea tries to easily store him through stating he's a rut and consequently not best for science. She thinks they must keep his guns and permit Dek cross. Tessa nevertheless needs a sample, so she connects 2 cables to his head that cause him lots of pain. A determined Thea turns off the machine and tells Tessa they have to be more than robots that most effective observe orders. In reality, she desires them to be sisters. However, Tessa reveals she did not come back to rescue Thea. She came for the Cowlusk. She is of the same opinion with Yaya's culture of getting rid of the susceptible and calls Thea broken. At that moment, Tessa receives a name from Earth, so she leaves to take it after ordering a guard to field Thea up. In view that the fellow can't communicate yet, Dek asks Thea to make him open considered one of his devices. Thea tells the Protect that Dek's device is a map, and whilst he opens it, his head explodes. Then, Thea frees Dek. An alarm is prompted, so more guards come to open hearth at him. Thea opens the return door, and Dek jumps right into a waterfall to break out. Someday later, Dek unearths his crashed ship and takes care of his wounds. But, there are no guns left. He considers leaving the planet, but he seems at his brother's helmet and recollects that the fine wolf is the one who protects the PC. Dek returns to the jungle and starts off-evolved collecting natural risks to use as guns, like blades of razor glass and the spikes from the purple plant life. He additionally gets the acid worm by means of the use of the fruit. Even as running, he comes across Bud and smells its spit. He finally realizes that Bud is the Call's infant and he was spared for smelling Lovett, so Dek covers Bud with his very own spit rather. Lastly, he frees Thea's legs so he can follow them to their owner. At the new base, Dek seems carrying the bison bones as armor and throws acid at a shield to carry him down. The legs observe a sign from Thea, who is in suspension in Terminal Field. When 2 guards attempt to attack the legs, Dek Speedy defeats them with a whip made with vines and razor grass. Bud additionally facilitates by way of destroying a shield in seconds. The duo keeps sneaking around the base, bringing down any shield within the way so the legs can hold moving without interruption. In the meantime, Tessa is speaking to the organization and reports they will cross again quickly with the Cowlusk. When requested about Deck, she tells them that he's lifeless. Along with his series of natural guns, Deck maintains destroying synthetic guards, now and again preventing a few of them on the identical time. Inside a lab, a shield manages to corner him, so Deck breaks a glass cage and shall we a vine sample kill him as a substitute. Whilst the legs discover the box, they leap on a shield's neck and Speedy kill him earlier than establishing the box. Thea awakes and celebrates, but she hears guards coming, so she pretends to be asleep once more. The legs kick a guard to make him fall, and Thea jumps out to combat him while the legs confront the second man. Each body has assist each different in struggle, and whilst the Protect is ready to hit the legs, they soar away and the blow destroys the different artificial who's being held by means of Thea. Then she holds up a small system piece and the legs push the final shield's head on it to kill him. 2. Quickly, Deck finds the field, too, but it's empty. A defend surprises him from at the back of, handiest for Thea to kill him with a shot. Her halves are subsequently back collectively, and he or she surprised to look Deck, who admits he got here returned for her like a proud wolf. Thea wants to depart, however Deck proclaims they ought to loose the callus so Bud can be with its mother. All at once, an alarm is going off, and Tessa tells her men to hurry up the release of the deliver with the callus. Even as she investigates, a team of soldiers unearths Deck, who activates the combustible worms to create a pleasant explosion that destroys all of the synthetics in a single go. Then, Tessa seems internal struggling within shape and shoots Deck with a laser she stole from his ship, which kills his acid Trojan horse. She makes use of the match to bring down systems and pulls out a big notice, but Deck dodges all of it. Inside the fundamental deliver, Thea tries to get admission to the callus, however the cage is locked. Whilst the Protect comes by means of, she fails to impersonate Tessa, so she smashes the fellow's head on the cage as a substitute. Then she uses his eyes to open the lock. When an assault throws Deck into the lab, the match hand comes down and is captured by the shifting vine. Deck attempts to climb it, but Tessa at once throws him off, so he hides in the back of a box. Tessa lifts it, however would not see him. It turns out he's climbed on the field to be above her. Now Deck can jump on Tessa to overcome her up, however she Speedy closes the cockpit. Abruptly, the callus aims and jumps on the healthy, so Tessa turns on the notice to stab it and lift it. Even as she's distracted, Deck climbs to the return of the match and starts ripping cables off to slow it down. Tessa throws a grenade on the Cowlusk, but Deck hits it with a metallic rod and makes it land at the match's arm, so the ice makes it drop the Cowlusk. The beast removes the notice from its body and attacks the suit, splitting it in two. Whilst the upper one half lands, the callus devours Tessa and roars in victory. The others reunite with Deck, and they watch the Cowlusk take a look at on its child. They presage a sweet moment and Deck is stimulated to show his appreciate for the callus too by bumping foreheads. Suddenly, the Cowlusk explodes from an ice grenade activated by way of Tessa, who has been alive inside the beast's stomach. She emerges from the rubble and tries to assault Thea, only for Deck to stab her from at the back of, ultimately killing her. He takes lower back his device, and Bud rips off her head. Sometime later, Deck returns to Thea and provides Tessa's head to his father. NAR still thinks he is a disgrace and sends out guards to kill him, however Deck actions rapid and without difficulty kills them first. Then Deck fights Jar, who hides along with his camouflage cloak. Deck turns on the Deliverance engine to create a sandstorm that allows him to look his father's vicinity and cuts his arm off to prevent him. Then he captures him with a cage device. Whilst Deck symbolically stabs his dad's helmet, Jar takes it off and says that Del can be part of the extended family if he shields. But Del says he already has an extended family earlier than a grown-up but eats in Jar's head. Thea congratulates him at the same time as Deck takes his father's cloak. At that moment, some other ship sings and Deck says it is his mom. Subscribe to watch more videos like this, leave a comment about your favorite movie and we will make it next. Thanks for watching.